I am so serious when I say we as a society did not deserve From Us 9. Anyway, hi. Hello. Welcome to the video. I know right off the bat, the lighting in this is not my best work. I'm doing my best. It's winter now. It gets dark at like 4:30. I can't film in daylight. We just all need to go with this. I think it's currently fine. We'll see how it gets through the video. Anyway, From Us. I want it known. I started these notes approximately 10 days ago and have since written 25 pages, made an entire slideshow, and if my timeline is good, this will probably be my crowning achievement to myself. Anyway, From Us. We're focusing today. From Us to me is a god tier girl group. I heard they were leaving Pledis and immediately got to work, and I've now made you this masterpiece because I need to talk about them. Okay, From Us to me is a god tier girl group who had what seems like an unnatural bad luck streak. To the sense that I do believe that someone put a curse on this group in some way, shape, or form. Magic had to have been involved because it's the level of issues that came up with this group that should not have happened. I want it known. I almost titled this, literally as of 10 minutes ago, this video was titled K-pop's most mismanaged group because it was insanity. And while I cannot wait to get into all of that with all of you, we must do credits, okay? This is my shout-out slide. If you've seen any of my slideshow history, as you've seen this slide, because my shout-outs never change. They are always quite consistent, but we give credit where credit is due. First, Miss Smoky Glow. I say that she is what inspired me to make these really long videos, and that is technically true. She is the inspiration for my original history ofs. They've since sort of spiraled into their own thing. Plus, I'm aware she's not the originator of the concept of a YouTube deep dive. This isn't her gig, but she's what inspired me, and I want to give her credit for that. She's also currently glow-missing. Smoky Glow subscribers will know what that means. Everyone else thinks I sound insane. She basically just posts a video every day in December. She has been so AWOL. If you watch the timeline of my history ads, you'll see how AWOL she's been. And as a longtime fan, I'm greatly enjoying Glowmiss. There have been some duds, but for the most part, they've kind of all banged. Either way, her channel, her Evolution of Playlist will both be in the description because, again, credit where credit is due. Secondly, the bestie. I do think I was kinder than usual to the bestie in the making of this video. I need it known. I say this a lot, but I don't think it sinks in. I'm very annoying in the process of making these videos. I straight up don't think I have time. I think my timeline on this video, my turnaround time was so quick between starting making it and this moment in time when I'm filming that I just don't think I had enough time to bother her. I don't know. But I do think I was kinder than usual. I did not tell her that much about the making of this video. So, we're kind. We're kind to the bestie. She's also the one who told me to make these as slideshows. So she is smarter than me, but we already knew that. Lastly, Bean. My little Bean, light of my life. I did forget to talk to her this week. I apologize, Bean. I promise to talk to you most Wednesdays. But either way, she is the reason that I can actually make these really long videos for starters. She is the sole reason, dare I say. So there is that at play. And also, just in general, she does support me quite unconditionally. She does not care about K-pop. She cannot be bothered to care. And yet she is, dare I say, my most loyal subscriber. And that's honestly just, I love Bean. I do. She's a queen and we stan. Last thing before we get to From Us is just general disclaimers. I do trust most of you to be normal, but I would like to cover my bases just in. First one is actually not on here. I need it known before I actually get into things. I'm filming this on December 3rd. From Us is currently scheduled to make their comeback on December 23rd, and I will do my very best to get any new information that comes out, any crucial information that comes out. I will do my best to get it into this video. This is my biggest fear whenever I make these, if they announce something on December 22nd, I'm gonna blow my fucking brain out. I'm so serious, I will kill someone because I'm trying to get this out on December 23rd for their comeback. And if they announce like crucial information the day before I'm gonna post this, I will kill a man. Like I will lose my mind. My point is though, I'm filming this on Friday the 13th, in fact, and that means I'm going to do my best to get it all in here. If I miss something that's like brand new, please be gentle to me. Now for the disclaimers that are actually in this slide. For starters, I will not be covering every activity. That goes for both group and solo. I actually skipped like 90% of solo activities in the making of this because I like to focus on like the big things, the things that actually like were sort of crucial to know for a history lesson type of things. A lot of activities are not that, and they will be skipped unless I deem them worthy of being included. This is my video, I'm an emperor, and I do not have to make sense. Secondly, I hate HUD. I have threatened, dare I say, on several occasions to just make like a 90-minute video explaining why HYBE is the worst K-pop label ever. In fact, this video was originally going to be a history of HYBE, and then I changed my mind and I made it this. However, HYBE, we hate HYBE. They are the worst thing to happen to K-pop, and I will not hesitate to point that out and point out their flaws at any opportunity. Next thing, you may or may not have noticed, I refer to them as Frumus. They are not Frumus9 to me. I know their legal name is Frumus9. I call them Frumus, and we all need to be okay with that, and if that's really where you draw the line, I would highly recommend reevaluating your priorities. Lastly, opinions will be shared from time to time. I need it known right now, I will die on the hill Frumus doesn't have a bad song. That's my first opinion that I'm going to share with you. Frumus does not have a bad song, however they do have varying degrees of great songs, and I will be pointing them out as such. And if you disagree with that, that's totally fine. Okay, cool. That is everything we needed to cover before we can actually like get into Frumus. We're going to start with the members because we need to meet the members to understand Frumus in my mind, and also to pretend we're normal and unbiased, I will be going in age order. So, starting us off with Lee Seon. She was born on January 7th, 1997, making her a fellow Capricorn, which does just naturally make her superior. She also continues my personal theory that leaders have too many damn roles. She's the leader, the lead dancer, the sub-vocal, and the visual. I feel like the visual aspect in Frumus is so interesting. The bestie is of the opinion, and I do agree, Frumus is the most like visual group in K-pop. Like in the sense that all the members, all K-pop idols are typically beautiful. This isn't new information. But like Frumus is different. The face cards in this group, insanity. Some Seon fun facts include she has a gold medal in jump roping. Okay, to each their own. I would trip and die. She also loves dogs and has a dog. This is her with her dog. I love dogs, and I feel a natural affinity to anyone else who also loves dogs. Anyway, next member, we have Song Haeyoung. She was born on September 29th, 1997, and is the group's co-leader, main vocal, and main dancer. Fun facts for Haeyoung include the fact that she has been writing songs since she was 9 years old. Apparently her first song was about blankets. She is also a licensed yoga instructor. She can do yoga, as seen here. I have several questions about both of these things. I'm choosing to keep them to myself, but I would love to hear the song she wrote about blankets. Next we have our only former member, Jang Gyuri. She was born on December 27th, 1995, making her another Capricorn. I love to see it. Gyuri would leave the group in July of 2022. However, before that, she was a member of the group and she served as the lead vocal and face of the group. Some Gyuri fun facts include she lived in Virginia. I feel like I don't know anyone who's ever lived in Virginia, but okay, to each their own. She also can play 8 instruments, roughly. Insanity. And she's been visually compared to both Jisoo of Blackpink and Wonyoung of IVE/IZ*ONE. Gyuri, Wonyoung, and Jisoo are people that I think look very different from each other, but sure. Speaking of IVE/IZ*ONE though, Gyuri went on Produce 48. Now, I do have actual thoughts about this. Like, I remember having these thoughts at the time this was occurring. Here's my main thought. I assume she had no choice in the matter because I've heard tale of what goes down on Mnet shows, and by that I mean I've watched many an Mnet survival show. I can't imagine going through all that and then being like, yeah, round 2, I can do that. Like, it could never be me. Either way, next is Park Jiwon. She was born on March 20th, 1998, and served as the main vocal of Furnace. Jiwon is also a member whose pre-debut lore I actually feel like is relevant outside of the general pre-debut lore of Furnace. She was a JYP trainee. She was on 16, the show that made Twice, and she was still close with Twice from my understanding. That's what I've gotten from Twitter mainly, but just the general internet. She was still close with the members of Twice, but more importantly, at least to me, she appeared in the music video for Only You by Miss A. If you watched my Miss A video, that music video is fucking insane. A wild experience to rewatch in 2024, but she was in it, so good for her. Other Jiwon fun facts include a love of horror movies and the fact that she can speak 8 languages. I'm not joking, I was talking about this at work today, fully unrelated to this from this video. I'm existentially jealous of people who speak a bunch of languages. I've made this very known on my channel. This is not new information, but I am existentially jealous. My mom has a friend who speaks like 6 languages, and every time we see her, I'm like, what in God's name is going on with your brain and how can I get it? I want to speak that many languages. On to the next member, No Ji-sun. She was born on November 23rd, 1998. In addition to being the center of Furnace, aka she won Idol School, she'd be the lead dancer and sub-vocal. Some Ji-sun fun facts. Her baptismal name is Lucia. I think that kind of bangs. She is also known for dropping things, and most importantly to me, dog lore. She has a dog named Achu. I've included multiple pictures of this dog. I'm kind of obsessed with this dog. It's really, really cute. This is her dog, Achu. I saw something that said it was named after the Lovelies song. I cannot imagine that is actually true. However, I am choosing to perpetuate this rumor. This dog is now named after the Lovelies song. I thought about Lovelies, and I'm now depressed, but we must rally for the children. And by children, I mean the first member who's younger than me, which is Lee So-yeon. She was born on January 22nd, 2000, and serves as the group's main rapper, main dancer, and sub-vocal, I think. I've seen her called a lead dancer in some places and a main dancer in others. She is some form of dancer. Some lore for this queen. Apparently, she has on multiple occasions almost set fire to the dorms. I have so many questions. Like, I have countless questions about this information, but we can't dwell on it because we have to move on. She's also really good at learning choreography. I assume that comes with being a dancer. I always compare it to Key from SHINee, who's claimed and proven that he can watch some choreography one time and then recreate it, which is insanity. But she's apparently very good at learning choreography as well, so good for her. Also, she too has interesting pre-debut lore. She trained at YG for like a hot minute. She was in a pre-debut group that was supposed to be the Next 21, which she was with like Moonsua, Billy, and whatnot. That era of YG trainees. She was 11 years old at the time. We need to stop recruiting children. Like, I get it. I get logically why they do it. We need to stop. Anyway, Lee Taeyong. Taeyong was born on May 14th, 2000 and serves as the main dancer, lead rapper, and sub-vocal of Furnace. As for her fun facts, she is another former JYP trainee, and she too loves horror movies, and has said her method to get through the parts that scare her is to chomp so aggressively on popcorn that it hurts her teeth. I can't decide if I respect this or not, but I do think it's interesting. She is also simultaneously allergic to apples and obsessed with eating them, and she just apparently powers through the pain of her allergic reaction. This I do know how to feel about. That is queen behavior. I too love apples, and I respect this wholeheartedly. Next member, Lee Nak-young. She was born on June 1st, 2000 and served as the lead dancer, sub-vocal, and visual of Furnace. Fun fact time. Nak-young's favorite fruit is apparently the mango. That is the factually correct choice, okay? I'm a mango supremacist. It is the best fruit. This is the correct opinion, so good for her. She also apparently has the nickname Marie because she had a phase where she wore a beret like every day. And that is potentially the best information that I learned in the making of this video. I find it so wildly amusing. Also, allegedly, she dropped out of middle school at like 13 and moved to China. I am assuming her parents approved of this action, but I do conceptually kind of love the idea that girly just dropped out of middle school and fully fled to China because she hated middle school so much. Like, that is a mood. And last but not least, Baek Jihyun. She was born on April 17th, 2003, and is the group's maknae and sub-vocal. Also, I need us to acknowledge something. I know we haven't talked about Idol School yet, but it aired in 2017. At the time, she was roughly 14 years old, okay? She got like tens of thousands of votes, and I have a genuine question for just the overall general public of people who stan 14-year-olds when they're over the age of like 18, which is, what exactly is it about this literal middle school aged child that had you so enthralled you voted for them to debut in a group? Like, I personally will never understand it. Like, I know I've made that stance clear that I think we need to stop debuting children. This is my second rant about it already in this video, and yet I just don't get, like, I don't understand looking at a 14-year-old and being like, yes, put them in the group, that's my ride or die, that's my girl. Like, that's a child. Anyway, let's have her fun facts now, okay? Apparently, her favorite subject in school, when she actually attended it, was history, which is a big mood. I, for the unaware, am a history nerd. I love history, so like big moods there. She apparently has never gotten below a 92 on a test, which is frankly insane behavior. I know very, very smart people who have scored lower on tests, so good for her. She's also very close with Won Young of IVE, another 14-year-old who got concerningly popular on a survival show. But I won't go on another rant. You've heard me rant enough about children in K-pop, so instead I will simply say that this has been the members of Fremis 9, and we can now get into the timeline of Fremis 9. So, our tale begins in March of 2017 when Mnet, the demon that they are, announced the next survival show in their seemingly ever-growing litany of them, which was Idol School. A brief history lesson, okay? For those who were not around in the K-pop community in 2017, I will share my knowledge, my lore, as an elder, if nothing else. 2017 was the height of survival shows. Like, 2017, 2018 is when they started going absolutely insane. Mnet was, to be fair, the leader of this wave. The Produce series was in full swing, and there were these like pop-up competitors trying to capture that hype. You had Mix 9, Under 19, The Unit, all three insane fever dreams. Now, as previously mentioned, Mnet was like running the game, okay? When it came to these survival shows, they were ruling the world. They were the ones who made the Produce series. Arguably the most culturally significant piece of Korean television in the K-pop industry ever, but that's not the point. My point is, there was one small flaw that Mnet did notice in the Produce series. Produce groups were temporary, so they created two shows as a result. They created Boys 24 with the express purpose of making a permanent boy group, and Idol School, whose purpose was to create a permanent girl group. I do need to confess something before we continue. I have actually never seen Idol School. I did not watch it when it came out, and I was gonna watch it for this video, like I did think about it, and then realized it does not matter for the lore. Is actively rigged, and also is around 18 hours of content, and I was on a very tight timeline, so I decided not to watch it. The main thing you need to know is that Idol School did decently well in the grand scheme of things. It was not as big as the Produce series, or like the modern day incarnation that is the various Planet series. It was not that big, right? Like, these people were not getting hundreds of thousands of votes. It was not at that level. But it was decently popular. It was definitely more popular than a lot of the non-Produce shows. Like, it was more popular than The Unit, more popular than Boys 24. It was doing fine. And the final episode of Idol School would air on September 27th. It began sometime in July, but the finale aired on September 27th, which gave us the final lineup of Fremis. Some lore I actually did not know was that Fremis has been connected to Pledis since they debuted. The Pledis CEO would take over prep for the Fremis debut. He helped them with vocal training, he helped them with just general debut prep. It does explain a lot for their future actions. I did not know this was a thing, and I found it fascinating. Also, while all that prep was going on, we would get a couple pre-debut shows from Frummis. The first one was Frummis's Room. This is what this poster is. It was just a sort of continuation of Idol School. It ran from October through November. It was just basically behind the scenes of their debut prep. This was followed by Frummis 9 Behind. It was just more behind the scenes content, really, more than anything else. But it aired on V-Live. My Fallen Angel. More importantly, though, November 29th would get us the release of Glass Shoes, the pre-debut single for Frummis. That's how it's officially marketed, and that's how it's known. Fuck that. It's their first digital single. And it did exist. Frummis has never really been a strong charter for like 90% of their career, so for the most part, we will be discussing Spotify and YouTube numbers, at least like early Frummis Spotify and YouTube numbers will be the main thing we focus on. Cool. So, Spotify. Glass Shoes has around 8.5 million Spotify streams as of right now. Not an insane number, but certainly not like completely unimpressive. Like, that's a decent streaming count for a brand new girl group. Meanwhile, on YouTube, the music video will get around 9.5 million views. Again, not an insane number, but not horrible. Musically, though, excellence. Excellence from the very first second. Glass Shoes is a banger to me. Again, Frummis does not have a bad song to their name, but even so, like, this song is incredible. It is, dare I say, the strongest first release from a 4th gen girl group. And then, on January 24th, 2018, we would get the official debut of Frummis with the release of their first mini album, To Heart, along with its title track, To Heart. Let's start with the album. To Heart would sell around 22,000 copies and peak at number 4 on the Gong charts. Not an insane number, but it could be worse. As for the title track, To Heart was not a hit. Okay, it wasn't. It has around 8 million Spotify streams, which again, is not awful, but it is already a drop from their pre-debut single. YouTube views, meanwhile, are even worse, dare I say. The two versions of this music video have around 6 million views combined, more than 3 million less than their pre-debut single got. And I simultaneously do and don't get this. Like, I do think Glass Shoes is a stronger song. If it were up to me, I would have switched what was the main title and the pre-release. But even so, I don't get it because this song is also excellent. Like, To Heart, in spite of not being as good as Glass Shoes to me, is still a great song. Either way, let's talk B-sides now, because Frummis' musical excellence is not exclusive to their title. I was not joking. They do not have a bad song. I did not say bad title, I said bad song, and I meant it, and that musical excellence does begin with their debut album. My personal golden B-side, aka the B-side that I think is the best on this album, it's in a word I made up, I do it in all of these videos now, but my golden B-side is gonna go to Miracle, an absolute banger, although I will concede this is a no-skip album for me. Like, this whole album just hits, and I do think it does help in a way. Like, Frummis is a lot of things. Popular from debut is not one of them, but a hit maker from debut, at least for people with taste, is absolutely Frummis. The next couple months are quiet, so we're going to jump ahead to May, which is when Yuri would go on Produce 48. And again, I do not get this choice, like, at all. Obviously, the goal was to get more fans to Frummis. Frummis, and by extension Idol School, just weren't as popular as Mnet wanted. Like, that's very clear if you really think about it. But I don't think sending Yuri to Produce 48 was the solution, because, for starters, if every group that went on Produce 48 or sent a member on Produce something, I should say, got a bunch of fans, do you know how many groups would, like, still be poppin'? Like, it's not a guaranteed influx of fans in the way that you need. I get it, that's why a lot of groups send people to these shows, but it's not a guaranteed success. And also from a personal standpoint, again, like, you could not drag me there, okay? I could go through round 1 of a Mnet show, I do believe that. You could never get me to go back, like, not in a million fucking years. On a more positive note, in addition to the announcement of Yuri's Produce 48ing, we would also get the announcement that Frummis would be releasing another album as 8 members. Which brings us to the release of Today, the second Frummis mini-album, which came out on June 5th. And this album, it didn't do great. If we're being honest, it actually kind of flopped. It sold 20,000 copies. It did peak at number 4, so it peaked just as well as their first album it sold. But it dropped in sales, and 20,000 copies is not as bad as 20,000 copies is 2024. Like 2018, 20,000 copies is not equivalent to 2024, 20,000 copies, but it's not ideal. Now for the title track, she has a couple of different names that those have called her over the years. I call it Predebut personally, or Pit Pat. Those are my go-tos, but like you can call it whatever you want. It's this title track. The song also did pretty great by Fremis standards, at least in comparison to their first 2 singles. Highly outperforming. It has more than 13 million streams on Spotify as of right now, an increase of more than 5 million from their last single, and similarly on YouTube it has more than 11 million views, an increase of 5 million in comparison to their last single. Now, I'm a bit conflicted about this because on the one hand, I am very happy that this song did well. I'm glad Fremis is doing well, but I just don't think this song hits like their first 2 singles did. It's not a bad song. Again, Fremis has never made a bad song. However, it doesn't have that oomph, it doesn't have that je ne sais quoi that their first 2 singles had. But enough about the title, let's talk B-sides now. This is another great album, okay? I do think their debut is better personally, but this is another absolutely great piece. And just like their debut album, this album has great B-sides. I did almost give it to Think of You because it has Christmas vibes and it's currently December. We've been playing a lot of Christmas music in my office, and it's just, I love Christmas music, and I did almost give it to that, but then I had to change my mind. I had to convince myself and remind myself that in general, 22nd Century Girl is an absolute banger that I adore, so I'm giving it to that. And the world does seem to agree with me. That song has 4.5 million streams. An insane number when I remind you the title track has around 13 million. Like, for a frame of reference, that would be like if one of the B-sides on aespa's Armageddon album had like 50 to 60 million streams. Like, it has insane numbers in comparison and deserves all of it. Like, that song is phenomenal. Promotions for their new album would run through most of the summer. However, they did go on a bit of a KCON tour, notably performing on KCON LA in August of 2018. Relevant because I was there. I saw them. I got on my little KCON book. I got the book. This is their featured artist page. I figured a fun little prop would elevate this experience, so I hope you like this. I had to find this. I forgot where I kept it. Now, Fremis primarily spent September preparing for their next album, so there's not much lore to cover in that sense, but we would see some moves on the label front. As an Mnet group, Fremis debuted under Stone Music. That is who Mnet groups just debut under. That's who IOI was under, at least in part. That's who co-managed 101. Like, Mnet groups, at least partially, are managed by Stone Music. However, following the end of Produce 48, and with what appeared to be a long and vibrant future of groups debuting from their weird, freaky survival shows, Mnet decided to create a new sub-label. They created Off the Record Entertainment, where Fremis was immediately moved and Eyes One would join them. In other words, they were still under the grand scheme of the CJE&M collective who owns Mnet, but they were just now under a different label, meaning they had already changed labels within their first year. However, keen-eared listeners would have noticed that I said they spent September preparing for an album, and sure enough, on October 10th, we would get the release of the Fremis special single album, From 9, along with its title track, Love Bomb. This album would mark the return of Gyuri from Produce 48, and while I do stand by that sending her there was a weird and bad choice, it did also seem to kind of work. She did get them a boost in album sales, at least she in part contributed to a boost in album sales. This album would sell 36,000 copies and peak at number 3 on the album charts, their highest charting and highest selling album to date. However, the shining star of this comeback is the title track Love Bomb. This song blew the fuck up, okay? Part of it is undoubtedly due to Gyuri going on Produce 48. I'm choosing to give primary credit to the fact that the song slaps. This song is, to this day, the second most streamed Fremis song on Spotify. It has more than 42 million streams. For a frame of reference, if you combine all the streams from everything they've released, titles and B-sides alike, up until this album, you'd come out to around 50 million, which is not bad at all. But for your next release to suddenly get 40 on its own, that's crazy. Over on YouTube, the song did almost as well. It has more than 30 million views on its music video, by far their most viewed music video up until this point, with the audio track alone having well over 10 million, beginning an interesting trend of Fromis's audio tracks getting really strong views on YouTube. However, arguably most impressively, as a charting expert, this song has charting lore. It wasn't on the Melon charts or the Gaon digital charts, but it did mark Fromis's very first appearance on the Gaon download chart. It didn't do anything crazy. It charted for 1 week and peaked at number 81. But in comparison to what they had been doing, which was not charting and not peaking, 1 week at number 81 is quite good. And on top of all that, this would earn them their very first music show nominations. They didn't get any wins with this song, but they did get nominated for the first time, so that's fun. And if you ask me, Love Bomb deserves everything and more, okay? Like, the level of success it was getting, these numbers need zeros after them for their streams, okay? Like, Love Bomb is pop perfection to me. I've heard it like thousands of times at this point, and yet I would still say it brings a smile to my face. It slaps and I love it. It is also the song that made me a Fromis fan. Not like a Fromis stan, like I was not there yet, but it is the song that made me start actively paying attention to them and listening to them. And I vividly recall it came out when I was in college back on the East Coast, and I would power walk across campus listening to Love Bomb. Turning our focus to the B-sides, this was admittedly an easier album to pick a golden B-side for. There's only 2. And while I do like both of them, I have this weird affinity for coloring. I think it's really, like, chill, but it still hits. Like, it's just, I really like it. Back to the timeline. Around the same time, they would release Welcome to Heal In. It came out just after the From 9 album. It was aired on V-Live, My Fallen Angel, and featured all the members except Cutie. But that's it for 2018, and I think it's time for just a little retrospective. Well, hello there. Welcome to the retrospective corner. Now, if you have seen my non-history of videos, this is my normal corner. Nothing has changed about it. However, when I do my history of, I just like to end every year with a little retrospective. I think it's fun. I think it's a cute way to end the year. And 2018 was a great year for Fromis. We do start off a little rocky. They weren't doing too great when they debuted, but that all changed with Love Bomb. Love Bomb really did change the trajectory of the entire group. They weren't gonna be like a major player. They're never gonna be a #1 girl group realistically, but they definitely could have been like a pretty popular girl group who was a solid charter. I do also want us to take a moment to acknowledge the number of releases we got in the first year of Fromis. Not including their pre-debut single from 2017, we had 3 entire albums this year. I would like us to keep that in mind because this is the only year Fromis has like a good and normal promotional schedule. Now I'm just sad, but we'll get to that when we get to it, and let's just continue in the timeline. Alrighty, welcome back. I got a snack. This is beef jerky. I needed something I could eat quickly, but it's 2019 time, and 2019 is a complicated year, to be sure. It does start with a bit of a hiatus though, so we're gonna jump ahead. Cool, so, May. Yuri would star in the show Compulsory Dating Education. The word education did not fit, and I did not feel like restyling this slide when I noticed that. So it's Compulsory Dating on the side, but it's Compulsory Dating Education in real life. She starred alongside Chu of Luna and Seungjun from Kunakun. I will concede, I did not watch this show. You should not be surprised. I watch a lot of television. Korean dramas have really never been one of them. So I didn't watch this. But it did air. It started airing in May, which sort of explains the hiatus. She needed time to film, which means now that she's done, we can get our next Fromis album. And we would not have to wait long for a comeback, with Fromis releasing their first official single album on June 4th with Fun Factory, along with its title track, Fun. And this album did great, okay? It sold more than 60,000 copies and peaked at number 2. Their highest peaking, and sold nearly double what their last album had sold. As for the title track though, Fun was no Love Bomb. Okay, it did peak slightly higher on the download chart. I will give it that. It peaked at number 73, which isn't crazy, but it is progress. That said, streaming numbers in general were not as successful as Love Bomb, to say the least. Love Bomb, you may recall, had 40 million Spotify streams. Fun has around 30, which is still substantially better than their first few singles, but it is a drop from their last one. Same thing with YouTube numbers. The music video for Love Bomb has 22 million views. Again, more than their first few music videos, and by a wide margin at that, but it is also a sharp drop from their last single. However, I am going to put a positive spin on things, okay? I am going to build you a narrative, and I want you to walk with me. A lot of people learned about Fremis during Love Bomb era. Like, a lot of people. And a lot of them chose to stay for Fun. Some left. Some only stayed for Love Bomb and then dipped. A lot of them stayed though. Like, you can see a huge jump in their fan base between these two releases. Now, let's talk about Fun the song. Again, Fremis has no bad songs. But this is the closest we get to a Fremis miss, okay? It isn't bad, because Fremis doesn't have bad songs, but there are certain moods where I am in where Fun will actively piss me off. Turning our focus to the B-sides, again, there's only 2, and while I do enjoy Fly High greatly, I think it's a gorgeous song, I'm giving the golden B-side to Love Rum Pum Pum because I'm a pop girl, and this is pop perfection, and it really is just perfection in every way. And because I'm always correct, we would actually get a round of promotions for this song, which began right after promotions ended for Fun. Also, are you ready to hear how insane I am? I already made the slide, actually, so I will be sharing this story with you regardless of your answer. So, in the making of this video, I read the Wikipedia page for every single one of Fremis' albums, including Fun Factory, and in that Wikipedia page, it said that promotions for Fun began on M Countdown on June 6th, and promotions for Love Rum Pum Pum Pum, the follow-up single, began on Music Bank on June 12th. Now, while those are just words to probably most of you, I'm insane, and immediately after reading that, I was like, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense, because if M Countdown was June 6th, then Music Bank couldn't have been the 12th, it would have been the 14th, because it's like the next day, it would have been a week later, so like the 14th, but also I knew they didn't start promotions for a follow-up single a week and a half later, in spite of the dates not matching up, and I was like, what is going on, why am I going insane? Yeah, they meant July 12th, I looked up when they began promotions, and I did fix it on Wikipedia. Here's my proof. You'll see right here, it said June 12th. I fixed it. I'm educating the masses. You should all be grateful. Okay, back to Fremis. I'm done being insane, at least publicly. Fremis began promotions, you may have remembered, on July 12th. I do not know how long these were meant to last, but around a week later, we were met with the revelation that Mnet was actively rigging both the Produce series in general, and more importantly, Idol School. Also, while I'm here, I have a thought, more of a question for the culture, if you will. As one of the 8 people on planet Earth who watched Boys 24, do we think Mnet also rigged Boys 24 and just nobody noticed because nobody but me was watching the show? My instinct is to say yes. I have to assume that they were. Like, if they rigged Idol School, presumably they would have rigged its brother show, Boys 24. I would assume yes. I, legally speaking, cannot prove any of this. Anyway, this is not a video about Mnet and their various legally confirmed crimes, so I'm not going to get too into the vote rigging scandal. I will simply say Fremis was immediately put on hiatus. Like, the minute we found out that Idol School was rigged, Fremis was put on hiatus, and a lot of people were worried that Fremis was just straight up gonna disband, which was not helped when X1 did straight up disband. But yeah, Fremis is on hiatus for the rest of the year, so that's it for 2019, and we are gonna jump back to the retrospective corner.
Can I be honest? 2019 makes me mad. Like, mad. Because this is when I think the demonic entities put their curse on Fremis. This is when the Fremis curse began, because I don't want to say they were sabotaged this year, but I feel like this is when the very poor management really began. I want to start by talking about Gyuri for just a second, okay? I'm not saying her acting was sabotage or even a bad thing. We've had a lot of groups over the years that have a member who acts on the side, right? Like, Miss A had Suji acting all the time, and they managed to remain very popular for their entire careers. Or even groups like Astro, that were maybe not like the top tier group, but they were still popular. Like, these groups existed, and just the long hiatuses that they would go on when the members had to film was just a part of the deal. However, I do have to note, Fromis had just put out a huge hit, at least by their standards, like a massive hit for them. And then instead of building on the momentum they got from that, because they got a lot of attention with Love Bomb, instead they had to go on hiatus. Then we finally get our comeback. At long last, we get a Fromis comeback. And it goes great. The album sells well, they get good streaming numbers, it's doing great. We even get follow-up promotions for a whole other song. We're doing phenomenally. And then the vote rigging scandal drops, and it immediately puts them on hiatus, and just essentially destroys the momentum they had been building. At least in theory it destroys it. It, let's say, could have destroyed any momentum they had been building. I blame Mnet for this one. I hate them with a burning, fiery fury. I can't stand most of the things they do. They can't even sue me at this point when I say that they rig all their shows, because they've admitted in a court of law they rig their shows. So, like, they're the worst, and with that we're gonna move to 2020.
Alrighty, 2020 time. A whole new decade for Fromis to conquer. And we actually start pretty strong with not only the announcement that Fromis wasn't disbanding, but that they were going to be making their Japanese debut with a Japanese version of Love Bomb, as well as hold some Japanese fan meets. Unfortunately, this was set to occur in March of 2020. And anyone who was alive on planet Earth in March of 2020 knows none of this shit fucking happened. They did not, under God's green earth, hold a fan meet in March of 2020. Like, absolutely not. They also did cancel the Japanese release. To this day, the light has not seen the Japanese version of Love Bomb. I'm sure it's done. Like, I'm sure it's been recorded and it's ready to go. They'd have to edit Gyuri out of it now. But, like, I've always wondered why they don't release it. Also, because Fromis was meant to be promoting in Japan for the next couple months, not only did it ruin their Japanese debut, it actually put them back on hiatus. Jumping into June, we would get our second Yuri drama with It's Okay Not to Be Okay. She played Sungbyeol, as you can see in this image right here. I did not watch it. I did read the synopsis on Wikipedia, and my immediate reaction was, this is not for me. But it's fine, because right around the time this stopped airing, we would get the announcement that Fromis, after more than a year, would be releasing a new album. And sure enough, on September 16th, Fromis would release My Little Society, their third mini-album, their first mini-album, by the way, in over 2 years, but their third mini-album, along with its title track, Feel Good. Let's start with the album sales, okay? My Little Society would sell 55,000 copies and peak at number 3 on the album charts. Both are technically a drop from their last album. And there are really two ways to view this to me. Way one is in the negative sense. You could be like, they were gone so long, and yet they're still doing just as well as they had been before, even before the vote rigging scandal. So, like, they're kind of stagnating. That's one way to view it. I'm choosing to be positive. I'm choosing to say that in spite of the vote rigging scandal, and in spite of such a long hiatus, they still managed to hold roughly similar album sales. Their last album sold 60,000 copies, this sold 55. Like, it's pretty close. Unfortunately, the same cannot be said for streaming numbers. Feel Good has around 18 million streams on Spotify, which, if it were in a pre-Love Bomb society, that would have been great. That would have been numbers for Fromis. Unfortunately, we are not in a pre-Love Bomb society. This is more than 10 million streams less than their last single had, and more than 20 million less than the single before that. Thankfully, YouTube numbers did actually stay not only similar, it actually outperformed their last song. The music video has 28 million views and is to this day the third most viewed Fromis 9 music video. However, the area the song did truly outperform any of its predecessors was on the download chart. It still never broke into the digital chart or the Melon charts, but it did make it to number 27 on the download chart, a huge jump. It is also the song that made me from a Fromis fan to a Fromis stan. I was now ride or die when this song came out. and it's excellent. It's phenomenal. It is, I don't know if I'd say From Us's best title, because again, they have so many that are all just god tier, but it is better than most girl group titles. I will die on that hill. Also, because this is a song that made me a From Us stan, I now know Twitter lore. Like, I didn't have to look up Twitter lore. I know Twitter lore. I remember Twitter lore. Anyway, now for the B-sides. This is, I will say, the first album that From Us put out that had slower songs. They had done, like, exclusively pop music up until this point. This song had more R&B and ballady sounds on it. I have seen people say that this should have been another single album and just been the pop songs. I do disagree wholeheartedly, but I do also understand it, because they ordered the album weird. Either way, I'm giving my golden B-side to the album's closer, Mugogi. In spite of my deep love of ballads, I am a ballad girl. I do love a good ballad. I'm also a pop girl, and my pop girlness does outweigh my ballad girlness, and this is the poppiest song on the album. And that's it for 2020. I'm not even kind of joking. They literally did not do anything for the rest of the year. So we're going to head back to the retrospective corner.
Okay, welcome back. Now, 2020 is a weird year. I am, however, going to say that From Us was successful in 2020, at least for their standards. From Us at this point is not a top-tier girl group, and that's fine. They weren't even like a big mid-tier girl group. They were sort of at the lower end of the mid-tier of popularity girl groups. They had a fan base. They weren't like a new group. People knew who From Us was. They just didn't have this massive fan base. They had a sizable one. They had a decent one. They just didn't have this incredible one, and that's fine. That said, I do want to acknowledge From Us had nothing to do in 2020. It reminds me a lot of like 2012, 2021, 2018 after, like those years where you just kind of sit back, and if you're looking at the group and what they're up to, you're like, what in God's name was going on this year? Like, what were you actually up to during this time, and why weren't you doing more things? And the answer is usually just poor management. The difference is, unlike a group like 21 or even a group like Astro, From Us didn't have the fan base that was strong enough to really withstand that level of hiatus. They did fine, but it's different when you're like a top tier girl group and you can just go on hiatus for a year and come back and still put out a hit. Like, when you're building a fan base, you need to keep building, and these really long hiatuses put that building at risk. Anyway, that's all I got for 2020. Let's move to 2021.
Okay, 2021 time. Would you be shocked, my dear viewer, would you be shocked to learn that From Us started 2021 on hiatus? Because you shouldn't be. We're going to jump ahead all the way to May, when they released their next album. Cool, so, May 17th, From Us will release 9-Way Ticket, their second single album, along with its title track, We Go. As always, starting with the album, 9-Way Ticket would perform roughly as well as the last few From Us albums had. It sold around 60,000 copies and peaked at number 4, so nothing real drastic changing. The same, however, cannot be said for the title track. We Go honestly blew up a bit and saw a huge increase in streaming numbers from their prior release. Let's start YouTube today, okay? The music video did around as well as the music video for Feel Good had done. It got a little less views, it has 27 million, 1 million less, nothing crazy. The audio track, you remember how during Love Bomb era, I was telling you how From Us has this really successful run with their audio tracks on YouTube? This is where that picks back up. The audio track has 53 million views on YouTube. That is nearly double the number that the music video has. This is not normal amongst idol groups. I've seen a lot of idol groups do really well on YouTube. They do not typically have double the views on the audio track. The song also saw a massive jump on Spotify. It has more than 38 million streams over on Spotify, substantially more than their past couple singles. Their third most streamed song to this day, the only one with more than it at this point in their history, was Love Bomb. Turning our focus to the charts, We Go would actually set a handful of charting records for From Us. Starting us off, it would earn them their first top 10 on the GOM download chart. It debuted at number 10. Although I do feel the need to point out, the GOM download chart stopped being fully canon to reality in early 2021. Going forward, like starting with this release, consider it canon adjacent. Similarly, the Gone Digital chart is like more canon, but still a little canon adjacent. Even so, this song would mark their very first appearance on said chart. It, again, didn't do anything crazy, but it did debut at number 106. For a group that has never appeared in the 200 spots that are listed before this, I think that's excellent. You know what else is excellent, though? This song, in general, it's so fucking good. It is one of my absolute favorite Fremis titles. I know I couldn't pick my number one. That I'm very confident of. This is like top 3, top 5. Also, I do need it known while we're on the subject of We Go by Fremis. Without fail, probably twice a month when I'm with the bestie, one of us, I should say, like something good will happen. And we'll be like, We Go. At which point, the other person will start singing. If it's me, I will sing We Go by The Wind, but if it's the bestie, she starts singing We Go by Fremis. Now for the B-sides. There's only 2. This was another easy one. Their single albums are so easy to pick a golden B-side for, because it's basically which one do I like more. I do enjoy Promise. I think it's a stunning song. But I like Airplane Mode a lot more. I stream it a lot more. It's a bop, and I like it. Also, you remember how I said I got on Fremis Twitter right before this comeback, like the comeback before this one, I should say. It was a pretty long gap. Yeah, one thing I vividly recall during this era of Fremis was that a lot of people were really mad that this was a single album. Because, for a frame of reference, they'd been gone for more than 6 months. They came back with 3 new songs. This isn't the first time this type of backlash had happened. The same thing happened with Fun Factory, where they were on hiatus for months at a time, and then came back with a single album. The difference is, Fun Factory, like, in people's minds, there was not the expectation that that was their only release for the year. Fremis, at this point in time, people were under the impression we were getting one Fremis album a year. And when your one Fremis album is 3 songs on a single album, I can see that being a bit disappointing. I am very pro single albums as a concept. I think they can be very effective when used properly. I do think that your first release after 9 months of a hiatus being a 3-song single album is a bit of a fuck you to your fans, or at least like from the company to the fans, especially when you consider the average Fremis mini only had 5 songs. They easily could have thrown 2 more songs on this and made it a mini, and I do think it would have made a lot of people a lot happier. Promotions for We Go would take us into June, and then August would give us the announcement that Fremis was actually leaving off the record and would now be managed by Pledis Entertainment, and by extension Hybe, because Hybe owned Pledis, making them a Hybe girl group. This does make sense if you are aware that Fremis has had ties to Pledis since they debuted. I was not aware of this at the time, and seemingly most people weren't, because I remember we were all really confused. Similarly, what else I remember at the time is that this information, the information that Fremis was now both a Pledis and Hybe girl group, was, let's say, not well received. First, let's talk about Hybe. The worst thing to happen to K-pop, potentially ever. I do actually stand by that opinion and could defend it with my life. But Hybe has always been kind of shit with their girl groups. Recent events excluded, just historically, they have been bad about girl groups. First, there was the whole glam disaster. That one isn't Hybe's fault, but it did leave them, let's say, shaky about girl groups. More recent history, at least recent at this time, was that just a couple months prior in May, Yotoshingu had disbanded. Hybe had purchased Source Music, and within 3 years had shut down the only girl group they'd ever managed, and people were very scared that Fremis was going to be next on the chopping block, since people believed Yotoshingu had been forcibly disbanded, believed it was forcibly disbanded, and believed that that disbandment was because they were not profitable enough, and Yotoshingu was a lot more successful than Fremis was. So yeah, as soon as this news dropped, people were actively tweeting things like "Rest in peace, Fremis." People thought Fremis was gonna die. I was trying to find a text that I sent to Bessie that said it's so over. I remember sending it. Like, we all thought it was over. We all thought From Us was going to make it like 6 months, get maybe an album, and then get disbanded. And some people would say the saving grace is that Pledis, who managed From Us, was more independent than Source Music had been. Unfortunately, Pledis is also shit about girl groups. In spite of being what made Pledis in the first place, they did not do justice by After School. I'm gonna die on that hill. After School deserved so much better. First, there's the whole thing with their comeback budget being used for 17's Monse. This whole thing started when 17 debuted. I don't blame 17. It's just when it started. First, After School was supposed to have a comeback in late 2015. That budget got moved to Monse, so 17 could have a comeback, which makes sense from a business standpoint. However, the issue isn't that they moved the budget. The issue is that they moved the budget and then never gave After School a final release, ever. After School or Orange Caramel. And all the members just quietly left the label one at a time, essentially meaning that After School suffered a very slow and very sad death. So that's why older fans, like people who were around in like 2015, did not trust this news. There were also the newer fans, like the 2018, 2019 fans, who have traumatic memories of Pristine, the absolute powerhouse that could have been, that Pledis managed so terribly and then disbanded quietly. Like, just all around, this was not a good duo to be under if you were a female. I will say, I do think someone from one of these hellscapes did hear the rumblings that everyone thought From Us was about to break up, because immediately after this move occurred, I guess move is the term, this move occurred, we would get the announcement that From Us was releasing another album. This aforementioned comeback would take place on September 1st with the release of the Talk and Talk single album, the group's second special single album. All things considered, this album actually sold great. You're looking at me like I'm insane. I know you are, because you can see this slide, so let me explain. There were 23,000 copies of this single album produced. They all sold. So the album has sold all its copies. However, that means it sold 23,000 copies, which is pretty abysmal for a group who's been hitting like 50s to 60s. And also, that means it charted way worse because it only sold 23,000 copies. It peaked at number 9, by far their lowest peaking album. Turning our focus to the title track, I have a theory that this song did great in the moment, because I remember this song did well in the moment. However, I think that was largely because everyone thought this was the last From Us release, or at least in the sense that if this release didn't do well, they were gonna disband under the demonic entity of Hybe. So I remember it did well. I think it only did well in the short term. That's my theory. For example, on Spotify, the song has 12 million streams. That is really bad in comparison to their recent singles. My theory is that everyone streamed it in the moment, because we all wanted to make sure From Us wasn't going to disband under the hellish demon of Hybe. However, we don't really come back to it. Where, like, I don't come back to Talk and Talk that often. I stream other From Us titles. So I think that's what's going on with these streaming numbers. YouTube does seem to be more stable. It has around 25 million views. It is a drop from their last few, but not as bad. My main theory is just that YouTube views are YouTube views, they're their own thing, but for streams, like Spotify streams, I just don't think people are coming back to this song. That's my main thing. I don't think, while other songs like We Go continue to get streams in the modern day, the same is not true for Talk and Talk. That said, this burst of success did help the song in a few areas. First of all, charting. Talk and Talk would debut at number 7 on the download chart, their highest peaking song to date. Once again, though, I want to focus on the Gotham Digital chart. It would peak at number 97 over there. Their first top 100 entry. Again, that number 97 is nothing insane. Like, we've covered groups on this channel that have multiple number 1 singles. But for a group who a year earlier could not break into the top 200, making it to number 97 is really good. And, to top it all off, Talk and Talk would earn From Us their very first music show win. They would win on the show on September 7th, and it was a big deal. Like, there were groups of roughly similar popularity to From Us that were getting music show wins. Like, Oh My Girl at the time would be able to get a music show win. Lovelyz could get a music show win. The fact that From Us never got one was kind of a big deal. And to be fair, when they won, it was like a moment. It reminded me a lot of actually 17 and Yodachingu's first wins. I did not intentionally pick Hive groups when I made these notes, but it is true that it reminds me of them because like they were sobbing. Okay, like the members were crying all over the place. Like at least I believe two of them. It might have only been one. I don't remember which one. One of them I remember was like on the ground, like fully floored levels sobbing. Like it was an emotional moment. There weren't any B-sides on the Talk and Talk album. It was just Talk and Talk. So no golden B-side, but I do want us to take a moment and talk about Talk and Talk as a song. Now, I have gone on record in other videos and said that when Hive acquires a group, their song gets more generic. This is true pretty much across the board. It happened to 17, it happened to Yoda Jingu, and it happened to Fromis. While it is not the most generic sounding thing from a Hive group, not by a long shot, Talk and Talk is noticeably a lot safer than what they were typically putting out. It was a lot more cutesy pop, a sound that does typically do really well with girl groups, and that's the type of sound that Talk and Talk is. Talk and Talk is not a bad song. Fromis does not have a bad song, but it is, if you're sitting down and you're listening to the entire Fromis catalog from start to finish, there is a noticeable decline in their titles when you hit this song specifically. It will bounce back. They have amazing titles later on, but I think with this first release, Hive really did want to play it as safe as possible, and cutesy pop is a very safe bet for a girl group of a younger age demographic. Yodachingu were in their late 20s when Hive acquired them. Fromis was like a mixed bag, especially because they were just such a broad age range, but I think they went cutesy pop to play it safe, at least for the first release, and it is a noticeable drop. For the record, that decline in quality does play into my theory that people just don't stream this song anymore, so at least I know I'm right. But either way, promotions for Talk and Talk were kind of the last thing that Fromis did this year, so we're done with 2021 now. They did normal year-end stuff at the end, obviously, but nothing that I feel like covering, so we are heading back to the retrospective corner.
So 2021 was kind of insane in several ways. First, let's talk positives, okay? Fromis had multiple releases. A newfound concept in any year except for their debut year. So we cheered. We loved that. And both of the comebacks actually did pretty well. At least at the time, they were charting. They got a music show in. They were getting solid streaming numbers. Like, we were doing well. But then there's the Hive movement, the movement to Pledis and by extension Hive, which I would definitely categorize as a negative since the majority of the Fromis fanbase, at least for the ones that I saw, were actively convinced this was going to lead to the group's disbandment in a rapid amount of time. Like, people were scared. People were fearful. And I'm not gonna say their fears were unfounded. If you look at Hive's track record, especially because, again, just a few months before Fromis moved to Hive, Hive had disbanded Yojashingu. Like, people were not exactly confident in the future of Hive, because a Hive move could have been good. Hive is a big label, they have better contacts, maybe not better than Mnet, but like, Hive is better with groups. Their main sole focus is groups. And it could have been good for, let's say, a boy group. However, really all we as a society could do at the end of 2021 was wait and see what Hive was going to do with them. So let's go talk about it.
Okay, 2022 time. The first year Fromis had under Pledis, and in general, honestly, a pretty great year for just the overall Hive girl groups. And we kick off the year right away with the release of Midnight Guest, Fromis' fourth mini-album, which came out on January 17th. A little birthday present to me. And this album did numbers by Fromis' standards. You may recall their highest selling album before this had sold 60,000 copies. This album sold 150,000 and peaked at number 2 on the charts. I will point out, this was the first album they did member versions for. Do with this information what you wish. Turning to the title track, this album was led by the iconic DM, which quickly became the biggest hit Fromis had to their names up until this point. Starting with the charts, DM would debut at number 3 on the download chart. Their first top 5 single. Meanwhile, over on the Gaon digital chart, it would peak at number 57. By far their highest peaking single. Like, it went up 40 spots from where Talk and Talk had peaked. This song also became the most awarded Fromis single on music shows, aka it got more than one win. It got 2 wins, in fact. It won on both the show and on Show Champion. Now for streaming numbers. This song was an absolute beast when it came to streaming. The music video has 40 million views, which is in and of itself impressive. However, even more impressively, the audio track has 67 million, making it the most viewed piece of Fromis media on YouTube to this day. On top of that, DM would become Fromis' most streamed song on Spotify. It has more than 55 million streams, which again makes it their most streamed song even to this day. Now for the B-sides. This is another great album because Fromis does not have a bad song. However, I am going to give my golden B-side to the album's opener, Escape Room. It's so cool. Like, it's not a classic Fromis sound, but it's so unique and interesting. Like, I really like it. And society does seem to agree with my stance. Escape Room has more than 5 million streams on Spotify. Like, it is their second most streamed B-side to this day. Promotions for DM would run until the end of January, but then in April, we would get the very first fan meet for Fromis with Fromis Day, which took place from April 22nd to April 24th. May was spent prepping, so we're gonna jump ahead to June 27th when Fromis released From Our Memento Box, their 5th mini album along with its title track, Stay This Way. And this was another huge seller, okay? This album sold more than 200,000 copies, making it, even now, the best-selling Fromis album, in addition to earning the group their very first #1 on the Gaon album charts. Turning our focus to the title track, Stay This Way was absolutely another hit for Fromis, okay? It peaked at #1 on the download charts, making it the best-selling single that week, and made it to number 14 on the Gaon digital charts, their first ever top 20. Stay This Way is also, even now, the most awarded Fromis song on music shows. It would get 5 total wins, essentially sweeping the full week, winning everything except for Inkigayo. Unfortunately, in spite of its excellent charting performance, Stay This Way did not manage to maintain the level of streaming success that DM had. It only has around 22 million Spotify streams, which not only is a massive drop from their last single, even in comparison to other singles, it's not doing Fromis' best numbers. Meanwhile, on YouTube, the music video would pick up around 26 million views, pretty average for Fromis in a pre-DM society. Like, that's high 20s is what most of their music videos were getting. However, once again, the audio track would actually outperform the music video, getting around 40 million views. As a whole, though, Stay This Way was absolutely another success for Fromis. It sort of solidified them as maybe not like a huge girl group. They certainly were not a top-tier girl group, like in terms of popularity, but they were certainly a pretty popular mid-tier one. Plus, it does not hurt that this song is incredible, okay? It has one of my all-time favorite Fromis choruses, definitely the one that, along with Love Bomb, at least gets stuck in my head the most. I heard this song for the first time in like 6 months, like a week ago, and this chorus has since been just living in my head nonstop. As for the B-sides, I will be giving the golden B-side off of this album to, once again, the album's opener, Up And. It's a banger. As we've established, I'm a pop girl. I love a just excellent pop song, and that's exactly what Up And is providing for me, and I love it. However, all is not well in the Fromis cinematic universe, okay? Following the end of promotions for Stay This Way, we would get the announcement that Gyuri was leaving Fromis. Apparently, when they moved over to Pledis, they'd all renegotiated their contracts, except for her, and her original contract was up, and she was leaving. As a result, Fromis 9 would now be an 8-member girl group, and whenever I do these, my rule is simply, we don't talk about former members. Gyuri has gone on to be a very successful actress, and we love that for her, but in terms of the history of Fromis 9, which is what we're here to discuss, she is no longer a part of that story, so she will not be covered going forward. On a more positive note, September would get us our very first Fromis solo concert with Love From, which began on September 3rd and ran through October 2nd. The group would also perform in Tokyo a few days later in October, and it does give me the perfect opportunity to remind you all that Fromis has somewhere in the vault a Japanese debut album that has just never seen the light of day, and I still don't know why. Anyway, the rest of 2022 is just normal stuff that I don't feel like discussing, so I'm not going to, because I am a despot. So instead, we're going to head back to the retrospective corner.
Can we be honest for a minute? 2022 was an excellent year for Promise, and did definitely reassure a lot of people who were fearful after the move to Pledis. Because not only was Promise successful, they had their biggest hits this year, they were actually getting normal promotions. Like, in addition to having their most streamed song, their biggest charting hits, in addition to having success, they were doing things. They had a concert, they had a fan meet, we had multiple albums. It was like, how do I want to put this? After years, like years and years of awful promotions, 2022 was really like a light in darkness, because for the first time since 2018, Promise was actually getting a normal promotional schedule. 2023, though, I'm just gonna say it's not ideal, and let's go talk about it.
2023 time, and in what is sadly a return to form, Promise begins the year on a pretty lengthy hiatus, so we're gonna fast forward several months. Cool. So, June 5th, Promise released Unlock My World, their very first studio album, along with its title track Me Now, which marked their first comeback in more than a year. And for what it's worth, this album did great, okay? It would peak at number 5, which is a bit of a drop, but it still sold just as well. It sold 190,000 copies, their second highest selling album at the time. Me Now was also another success on the charts. It would debut at number 13 on the digital charts, their highest peak to date, as well as debuting at number 2 on the Gaon download chart. Unfortunately, in pretty much every other area, this song was a bit of a disappointment. It would only get one music show win. Most of its wins were snatched by Stray Kids, which will add it to the ever-growing list of reasons I have beef with Stray Kids. But one win after your last song got 5 is a drop. Streaming numbers, unfortunately, just weren't much better for Promise. The song has 18 million Spotify streams. I've covered groups in this little history of series of mine that would kill to get 18 million streams. Like Gravity would kill to have a song with 18 million streams. Promise, very consistently for the most part, has been easily clearing 20, so dropping below that number is noticeable. YouTube numbers were even worse. We've established the average Promise music video got mid to high 20 million views, right? Like 26 to 28 million views was pretty average for Promise. This music video got 19, failing to clear 20. Their first song in years to not get 20 million views on the music video. The audio track also saw a huge drop. You may recall, the audio tracks were actually outperforming the Promise music videos for a lot of their songs. This one not only failed to outperform, it saw a substantial drop, only picking up around 10 million views. I, for one, for the record, do not understand. Gun to my head, you tell me to explain why this song flopped. I couldn't, because this song is excellent. This song is not only excellent, it's a very classic Promise song. Like, it's just, it wouldn't be like a Talk and Talk era where the song is just weaker in comparison. Me Now is a phenomenal song, and it deserved to do better. But let's talk B-sides. This album does have a pretty obvious frontrunner for the general public, like what the general public would consider the best B-side on this album, with the album's opener, Attitude, being the most streamed B-side Promise has on Spotify, and I will actually be agreeing with the general public on this one. This song is amazing, okay? It's so cool, it's so good. I remember they performed it at, I want to say, one of the Gaios, and it altered my brain chemistry. I don't remember which Gaio, but I remember I watched the stage, and I remember it was life-changing. And that's it for 2023. Yes, I'm actually making that joke again. The only thing they did in 2023 that is worth noting is release their full. I will say, people were a lot less mad about this one than they were when they only released a single album in a year. Like, people were less pissed when it was a full. People were still pissed, but they were less pissed. But either way, this is all they did for the year. We're heading back to the retrospective corner.
So, you remember how the last time we were here, I said that 2022 assuaged a lot of fears that a lot of people had when Promise moved over to Pledis? Yeah, 2023 brought a lot of those fears back. It really did seem like 2022, Hybe and Pledis were very focused on reassuring the From Us fan base, like, no, we will give your faves promotions, and they did. And then they immediately stopped the minute that year ended. And what only made matters seem worse was that in 2022, Hype had debuted 2 new girl groups, both of which were much more successful than From Us and immediately appeared to be much more of a priority. It didn't help that Me Now was honestly a bit of a flop by From Us standards. The album sold great, but the single failed to hit the levels that their past few had, and it was not a reassuring time. It did bring up the sort of perpetual point that a lot of people were making with From Us, which was that because they never really had comebacks, because they never really had promotions, it stagnated them. It kept them from getting more and more popular. And that is true. We've seen that. They were essentially, every time they put out a big song, they'd go on a really big hiatus. And it didn't help. It was definitely not an added bonus, especially because you can look at groups. There are groups where essentially their entire concept is that they go on these really, really long hiatuses. Blackpink does it, and they've managed to remain one of the top girl groups. But the difference is Blackpink was always popular. They didn't need to build that fan base in the same way From Us really still needed to. But speaking of From Us getting more popular, let's go talk about 2024.
Okay, 2024 time. The current and widely believed to be final year of From Us. And we do start the year strong. From Us held their second concert in January from the 27th to the 28th with From Now. The concert did sell out, which is lovely. However, that's all they did for the first several months of the year, so we will once again be jumping forward in time. Alrighty, August 12th, From Us would release Supersonic, their third single album, along with its title track of the same name. And I want to say right now, if I inadvertently call the song Supernova or Supernatural, and I miss it and I don't fix it, please bear with me. All 3, name-wise, are interchangeable in my mind. Starting with the album, Supersonic would earn From Us their second #1 album. Yay. It would also sell around 140,000 copies. Now, that is a drop from their last few albums. However, single albums in general just don't tend to sell as well as fulls and minis, so it's not that deep. And then there's the title track. Supersonic would become the first true charting hit From Us ever got. Most of their songs debuted high enough on the Gaon Digital chart, but they only charted for 1, maybe 2 weeks. The same is not said for Supersonic. It has been charting since it came out, as well as earning From Us by far their strongest beat, peaking at #2 on the Gaon Digital charts and earning them their first ever appearance on the Melon Weekly charts, where it peaked at #8. Additionally, it would earn From Us an additional 4 wins on music shows, so we love to see it. It's their second most awarded song. Turning our focus to streaming, Supersonic would do exceedingly well. It already has 24 million Spotify streams. I would like to know that like a week ago, not even, like a few days ago when I took these notes, my notes say it has 22 million. Because when I took these notes, it had 22 million. It's up to 24. Like, this song, in spite of being relatively new, is getting really good streaming numbers. The audio track, meanwhile, is even higher. It's up to 27 million streams, while on YouTube, the music video itself has another 22 million views. Not quite at that typical range From Us usually sits at, but again, this song is still pretty new. I'm sure it'll end up at the, like, mid to high 20s. As for the B-sides, again, this was an easy album to pick, because there's 2, and while I do love Beat the Heat for its general summer vibes as a summer pop lover, I'm absolutely giving that golden B-side, my final golden B-side, to Take a Chance. This song is everything to me, okay? It's so chill, but it fucks so perfectly. I love it more than words can comprehend. Like, it is one of the best From Us songs in their pretty flawless discography. However, this is where our tale takes a pretty depressing turn, to say the least, since November 29th, just a few months after From Us released a huge hit, Pledis would announce that at the end of the year, From Us would be leaving the label. Now, I want to stress I could have missed an official announcement. It has been known to happen that I miss, like, very important lore, but to my understanding, it is not 100% clear if this is the full end of Frumis or if they're just going to go to another label. I've seen both said with extreme confidence, so I don't actually know. And assuming I edited this on time, today, December 23rd, Frumis released From, their final single under Pledis, and potentially as a group ever. Now, since I'm filming this in advance, I do not know anything about how this song does or what it sounds like. It could be another huge hit. It could chart for 0 weeks and peak at number 200. I don't know. It's just only time will tell. I hope it does well, in the sense that I hope it does well and the group stays together and they move to another label that will actually treat them right. But I'm not optimistic. I stand by my original statement that someone has cursed this group. Anyway, that's all I got for you today. This has been the history of Frumis 9, and I'm depressed. I stand by this is a group we as a society did not deserve, that we not only did not deserve, we did not treat right, like as a group, as a society, as K-pop fans. We did not do justice by Frumis, and that will haunt me to my grave. But until then, thank you so much for watching. Feel free to comment your thoughts on my video down below. Let me know how you feel. You can like and subscribe if you want to or don't. I will be okay either way. And in the description, I will put a playlist that has all of my other history ofs. There's a lot of them. I've been doing these like once a month for this year. I think that is my consistent schedule. Like, you'll usually get around one a month, roughly. So yeah, you may check those out if you search shoes. I will also put all my Frumis reviews down there, so you can watch those if you want to, see how I feel about various Frumis releases. But yeah, thank you again for watching. Bye!